Viltrumites and Saiyans. Two warmongering, battle-hungry, world-conquering races. I saw a question recently posed regarding who would win in a battle between 50 Saiyans and 50 Viltrumites, and today I would like to answer that question. Now before I get started, I want to get something out of the way. When I say 50 Viltrumites versus 50 Saiyans, I'm saying if you took 50 regular Viltrumites and 50 regular Saiyans and made them go head-to-head in a battle to the death. Not named main characters. It doesn't even need to be said, but I will anyway. If Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, or any of the Z fighters get involved, they win, flat out. It wouldn't even be a contest. There's an argument that Goku alone could easily stomp the 50 Viltrumites blindfolded, with both hands tied behind his back, a knife in his heart, and no legs. The power differential there is insane. Sure, Viltrumites are strong, but against someone like Goku, who's shaking infinite voids of nothingness with his mere presence and almost causing the destruction of the universe with just his punches, what they can do seems kinda lackluster. It would be the literal definition of that coughing baby versus nuclear bomb meme. Throughout his adventures during Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super, Goku has reached some really ridiculous heights and has become the pinnacle of strength in certain regards. But you cannot say the same for the average Saiyan. At a base level, Saiyans are really strong. They're capable of flight, energy, or ki manipulation, and they transform into giant monkeys when they're exposed to the moon. Now, I'm not going to go in depth about exactly how strong and exactly how fast they are, because the average Saiyan doesn't have much screen time, and so they don't have much feats, but it also doesn't really matter for the argument to make sense, and you'll realize once I break it down. But for understanding's sake, let's say the average Saiyan was about as strong as Raditz, give or take some being slightly stronger and some being slightly weaker. I say this because Raditz himself was a regular-ass Saiyan, not some elite like Vegeta or freak of nature like Broly or a king that can hand-wave 3 planets out of existence. He was a normie, and the best guesstimation on how strong the Saiyans actually were. Let's say anything he can do is what they could do or was capable of. Now, on the flip side, it's easier to explain how strong the average Viltrumite is, and here's why. Throughout the majority of the original comic series, Mark is way weaker than the average Viltrumite and never really scores a clean one-on-one win against one until the very end of the comic, and even then he had help in order to win that. That means we can count all his feats up to a certain point as something that the average Viltrumite would be capable of, and then some. So you already know their kit. They're your standard flying brick characters with super strength, speed, flight, and vulnerability. They can survive in a vacuum of space, and they're capable of holding their breath for up to 2 weeks at a time. Now again, I won't go into the exact specifics of how strong and fast they are, because it isn't that important. What is important is the fact that anything Invincible can do, the average Viltrumite can do, but better. Why is that important, you ask? Well, let me show you. This technically counts as spoilers if you haven't read the original comic yet, so fair warning. In the original comic, Mark, his dad, and Theodos fly through a planet and cause it to explode, which completely destroys it. Now, this isn't to say that he could fly through and punch through a planet, because they use a special bullet that can shoot through anything in order to help pull it off. But what this does mean is that he can survive a planet exploding in his face and nothing would happen to him aside from his clothes getting damaged and him becoming stunned for a moment. Now, if you're familiar with Dragon Ball, you probably know where I'm going with this, and if not, pay attention. It's known in canon, all the Saiyans were killed by an attack that destroyed their home planet. The only ones that survived at the time were the ones that were off planet. See why I said it doesn't matter specifically how strong they are? They all died to an attack that Invincible, and by association, all the other regular Viltrumites would have survived. Meaning that at a base level, Viltrumites are way more durable than Saiyans. What's even more important to note is that Invincible receives more damage fighting other Viltrumites than he does from a literal planet exploding in his face, meaning that they hit harder than that same explosion. So it stands to say that they hit hard enough to seriously hurt and or kill the Saiyans. However, the same can't be said for the Saiyans. Saiyans use energy blasts in combat, and an energy blast destroyed their planet. If the Saiyans had the power to, they would have used an energy blast to stop the one that destroyed their planet, but they didn't because they couldn't. We even see Bardock try with all his might to stop it with what we can assume is his strongest attack, and it literally gets eclipsed and erased along with him. This means that the Saiyans, even if they had the power to hurt Viltrumites like other weaker beings have been shown to do, they wouldn't have that finishing power needed to take them out, seeing as how they wouldn't be able to do something that's more powerful powerful than an explosion that a Viltrumite could casually walk off. Even if you factor in their grade 8 form, it doesn't make things better for the Saiyans. For one, they get stronger, yes, but they aren't going to get so strong that they can swat the Viltrumites like flies. They just get a stat boost. Sure, they do damage, but they still wouldn't have that finishing power. Second, they lose control over themselves and just go on a rampage, which makes things worse as the Viltrumites could just plan around their attacks. And it's not even that reliable, as regular Saiyans can't transform at will and have to wait until there's a full moon available. When you look at the peak of both their races, it seemed obvious that the average Saiyan would win, but we have to remember that Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and all of their friends only became that strong because of the journey they've been on that spans 40 years, 7 series, 21 films, and just too many games. Yes, the Saiyans technically have potential that Viltrumites can only dream of, but that's only true in the same way that you or I have the potential to be LeBron James, or Tom Brady, or Michael Jordan, or even Michael Phelps. Yes, we're all humans, but at a certain point, you have to be realistic on what you can be. And realistically, I don't see any way that 50 regular Viltrumites lose in a battle against 50 regular Saiyans. They're too durable, they hit too hard, and the Saiyans really don't have anything in their wheelhouse that could put them down. But maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you have some super obscure piece of media that totally debunks everything that I'm saying. If that's the case, let me know down in the comments below. Until next time.